The nurse looked at me like I was insane when I volunteered. You want to give your kidney to someone with no identification, no emergency contact, no one who even knows he's here? But what she didn't understand was that I saw myself in him. I knew exactly what it felt like to be invisible and dying, trapped with a man whose love felt like violence, waiting for the pain to finally end. And if saving the stranger was the last thing I did before vanishing from this world, at least I'd matter to someone. So I said yes. And a week later, when men in black suits stormed the ward and everyone started bowing, I realized the person I'd saved had an identity that would make the entire hospital gasp. And I never would have thought he would be my salvation. I'd been staring at the fluorescent lights above me for the past hour, sitting in this uncomfortable plastic chair in the hospital corridor, trying to figure out how I'd ended up here. Actually, that was a lie. I knew exactly how I'd ended up here. Mark had thrown me against the kitchen counter this morning. My ribs still ached where they'd connected with the edge. He'd been angry about something. He was always angry about something. The coffee was too cold, I'd looked at him wrong, I'd breathed too loudly. It didn't matter anymore. The reasons stopped matching 2 years ago. I'd stumbled out of the apartment while he was in the shower, my hands shaking so badly I could barely lock the door behind me. I didn't know where to go, but my side hurt so much I thought maybe something was broken this time. So I ended up here, at the public hospital. The doctor had checked me over, said nothing was broken, just bruised. She looked at me with that expression I'd seen 100 times before. Pity mixed with helplessness. She'd asked the question they always asked. Is there someone we can call for you? I said no. There was never anyone to call. She'd given me some painkillers and told me to rest before going home. The word felt like a joke, but I'd nodded anyway, taken the pills, and sat down in this chair to wait for them to kick in. Or maybe I was waiting for the courage to go back. Or maybe I was waiting to just stop existing altogether. I was so tired. Tired of hurting. Tired of being afraid. Tired of waking up every morning and wondering if today would be the day Mark finally went too far. The truth was, I'd already given up. I just hadn't figured out how to make it official yet. That's when the chaos started. The emergency room door slammed open with a bang that made everyone in the waiting room jump. Paramedics rushed in, shouting medical terms I didn't understand. Wheeling a gurney between them, I caught a glimpse of the person on it. A man, his clothes soaked with blood, his face pale as death. "Trauma room 2, someone yelled. "We're losing him. Get the trauma surgeon now." They disappeared through another set of doors, leaving a trail of bloody footprints on the white tile floor. The waiting room fell silent for a moment. Then, slowly, the murmur of conversation started up again. People went back to their phones, their magazines, their own problems. But I couldn't look away from those doors. Something about seeing him broken and bleeding and surrounded by people trying desperately to save him made my chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with my bruised ribs. I stood up and got close enough to hear the voices on the other side, urgent and stressed. "Punctured kidney, massive internal bleeding. What's his blood type?" "O negative, but we don't have a match in the system. Does he have family? Someone we can contact?" "No ID, no wallet, no phone, nothing. We don't even know his name." "Then how are we supposed to find a donor? He needs a transplant ASAP or he's dead within hours." My hand was on the door before I realized what I was doing. A nurse spotted me and hurried over, her face flushed with stress. "Sir, you can't be back here." "I heard you need a kidney donor," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm, steady, like it belonged to someone else. She blinked at me. Yes, but I'm O negative, I said hurriedly. "I can donate if I'm a match." The nurse stared at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. "Sir, do you understand what you're saying? This is major surgery, there are risks, and this patient, we don't even know who he is. He has no one, no way to compensate you." "I don't need compensation," I said quietly. I want to help." She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching my face. "Let me get a doctor," she finally said. 20 minutes later, I was in a consultation room with a tired-looking surgeon who explained the procedure, the risks, the recovery time. He asked me questions about my medical history. He asked if I was sure. He asked if I had anyone who could take care of me after the surgery. I lied and said I did. The truth was I had no one, but that was okay. After this, it wouldn't matter anywhere. They ran tests, drew blood, did scans. Everything happened so fast it felt like a dream. Or maybe I was the one moving in slow motion while the world rushed around me. 3 hours later, the surgeon came back with the results. You're a perfect match. And something in his voice sounded almost odd. It's actually remarkable. I've never seen compatibility markers this strong between non-relatives. I didn't know what that meant. I just nodded. We need to prep for surgery immediately. Are you absolutely certain you want to do this? Once we begin, there's no going back. I thought about Mark, about the apartment I'd left this morning, about the life I'd been living that didn't feel like living at all. I said, I'm certain. They wheeled me into pre-op, changed me into a hospital gown, started an IV. A different nurse, younger, with kind eyes, held my hand as the anesthesiologist explained what would happen next. You're very brave, she whispered to me. I almost laughed. Brave? That wasn't what this was. This was the opposite of brave. This was giving up everything I had left because I didn't have the strength to hold on to it anymore. But if giving it up meant someone else got to live, maybe that was enough. Maybe that was the only thing I ever did that actually mattered. The last thing I remembered before the anesthesia pulled me under was a strange warmth spreading through my chest. Not painful, not frightening, just warm. Like maybe for the first time in 3 years, I'd done something right. I woke up to pain. My mouth was dry, the lights were too bright even through my closed eyelids. I could hear the steady beep of machines somewhere nearby, the soft shuffle of footsteps, distant voices. Hospital, right? The surgery. I forced my eyes open, blinking against the harsh light. How long had I been unconscious?
You're awake. The voice made me turn my head slowly because everything hurt, and that's when I saw him. The man from the gurney, the dying stranger I'd given my kidney to. He was in the bed next to mine, propped up slightly, looking at me with dark eyes that seemed too alert for someone who'd nearly bled to death a while ago. His face was still pale, but not the deathly white I'd seen before. There was color in his lips now. Life had saved him. The thought felt surreal. You, my voice came out as a rasp. You're alive. Something flickered across his face. Relief? Gratitude? Couldn't tell. Because of you, he said quietly. His voice was deep, rough from disuse, but gentle. So gentle it made my chest ache. They told me what you did, that you volunteered, that you didn't even know me. I didn't know what to say to that. What was I supposed to say? You're welcome for the kidney? Stranger, why? He asked. And there was something raw in that single word. Why would you do that for someone like me? Someone like him? He said it like he was worthless, like he was the kind of person who didn't deserve saving. I knew that feeling too well. You needed help, I said simply. No one else was coming. He stared at me for a long moment, and I had to look away. His gaze was too intense, too searching, like he could see right through all the broken pieces of me. What's your name? He asked softly. Lily, I whispered. Lily Reed. Lily, he repeated, like he was testing how it felt in his mouth. Then quieter. Thank you, Lily, for my life. I wanted to tell him not to thank me, that I hadn't done it for gratitude, that I'd done it because I had nothing left to lose, and at least this way something good would come from my existence, but I didn't say any of that. What's your name? I asked instead. He hesitated just for a second, but I caught it, like he was deciding something. Daniel, he finally said. My name is Daniel. No last name, just like he had no identification when they brought him in. Who was this man? And why did someone end up bleeding and alone with no one to call? Before I could ask, a nurse entered. Ms. Reed, good to see you awake. How are you feeling? Sore. That's normal. The surgery went perfectly. Both of you are recovering beautifully. She checked my vitals, adjusted my IV, made notes on her tablet. You'll need to stay here for observation for at least a week. Doctor's orders. A week. My stomach dropped. Mark. He'd be looking for me by now. He'd be furious. My phone? Where was my phone? Your belongings are in the drawer, the nurse said, noticing my panic. But I'd recommend rest over phone calls right now. Your body needs to heal." She left before I could respond. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of reality crushing down on me. What had I done? I couldn't stay here for a week. Mark would... "Lily." Daniel's voice pulled me back. When I looked at him, his expression was concerned. "Are you all right? You look scared." Scared. Yes, that was the constant state of my existence. "I'm fine," I lied. He didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. Instead, he just watched me with those dark, thoughtful eyes, and for some reason, that made me feel less alone than I had in years. Maybe just for this one week, maybe I could pretend the stranger's gentle voice and concerned eyes were real before I had to go back to the truth. The second day was mostly sleeping and pain medication. The third day, I could sit up without feeling like my insides were tearing apart. By the fourth day, Daniel and I had fallen into a strange sort of rhythm. He didn't ask me questions I couldn't answer. I didn't ask him why he'd been alone and bleeding with no identification. We just existed in the same space, two broken people recovering side by side. "Do you like reading?" he asked one afternoon, nodding toward the book a nurse had brought me from the hospital library. "I used to," I said, "before—" I didn't finish the sentence. Before Mark decided books were a waste of time. Before he threw out everything I owned that wasn't useful. Before reading became another thing that could set him off if he caught me doing it. Daniel didn't push. He just nodded, like he understood. "Me too," he said quietly. "I used to read all the time. Poetry mostly. Old classics." "Poetry?" I couldn't help the small smile. "That's unexpected." "Why?" His lips quirked slightly. "Do I not look like the poetry type?" Honestly, I didn't know what type he looked like. Even pale and recovering, there was something about him that felt different. The way he carried himself, the way nurses seemed extra careful around him, the way his hospital gowns somehow looked less ridiculous on him than it did on me. "I don't know what you look like," I admitted. His expression softened. "Good. That's good." Before I could ask what he meant, my phone buzzed in the drawer. My whole body went rigid. It buzzed again, and again, and again. "You don't have to answer that," Daniel said, his voice suddenly protective. "I should check," I whispered, even though everything in me was screaming not to. I pulled out the phone with shaking hands. 50 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from Mark. "Where are you? Answer your phone. If you left me, I swear to God, you're mine. Answer me or you'll regret it." The messages got worse from there, angrier, more threatening. I could practically hear his voice screaming through the screen. "Lily." Daniel's voice cut through my panic. When I looked at him, his expression was concerned. "Who is that?" I couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Then Daniel did something unexpected. He pressed the call button for the nurse. When she arrived, he said calmly, "Could you please hold on to Ms. Reed's phone for the remainder of her stay? She needs rest without distractions." The nurse looked surprised, but nodded. "Of course." She took my phone gently, and I felt like I could breathe again. After she left, I whispered, "Thank you."
"Someone's hurting you," Daniel said. It wasn't a question. I didn't confirm or deny it. I just looked away. "You don't have to go back," he said softly. "After you're healed, you don't have to go back to whomever that was." I almost laughed. Where else would I go? I had no money, no job, no family. Mark had made sure of that. He'd isolated me so completely that he was all I had left. "It's not that simple," I said. "It could be." I looked at him then, really looked at him, at this stranger who'd somehow started caring about what happened to me. This man I saved who now wanted to save me back. "You don't even know me," I whispered. "I know you gave me your kidney when you had every reason not to," he said. "I know you're scared of whoever keeps calling you. I know—" He paused, his voice dropping. "I know you deserve better than whatever you're running from." Something in my chest cracked open at those words. When was the last time anyone had said I deserved anything? Before I could respond, the door burst open and everything changed. Men in black suits poured into the room like a flood. 5, 6, 7 of them. The nurses in the hallway froze. A doctor actually bowed. I watched in confusion as they surrounded Daniel's bed. "Mr. Thorne," one of them said, his voice sharp with relief. "We finally found you, Thorne." My blood went cold. Even I knew that name. Everyone in the country knew that name. I watched silently as security guards positioned themselves at the door. A woman in an expensive suit appeared with a tablet, rattling off schedules and appointments in rapid English. And through it all, Daniel Thorne, heir to one of the most powerful corporate empires in the nation, just sat there in his hospital bed, looking exhausted. I pressed myself back against my pillow, trying to make myself smaller, invisible. It was an old instinct, one I'd learned living with Mark. When powerful, important people filled a room, people like me disappeared into the walls. "Sir, your father has been searching you for 3 days," the first man said. He was older, gray at the temples, radiating the kind of authority that made my instincts scream to be unnoticed. "When you disappeared after the attack, we thought—" "I know what you thought," Daniel said quietly. His voice was still gentle, but there was something underneath it now, something that made even that commanding man step back. "Give me a moment." "Yes, sir. We'll wait outside." They filed out, but I could see them through the window, phones pressed to ears, talking urgently. The nurses whispered to each other, and I caught fragments. "Thorne heir. Can't believe he was here. That woman saved him." "Lily," Daniel's voice was soft, and when I finally looked at him, his expression was so concerned it made my chest ache. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I didn't even know what I was apologizing for not being important enough to be in the same room as someone like him, for being stupid enough to think saving him meant something. Of course he'd been kind to me, I saved his life, but kindness wasn't the same as whatever stupid fantasy I'd been building in my head. "I should go," I said, but I didn't move. Couldn't. Where would I even go? Back to Mark? The thought made me want to throw up. But what choice did I have? "Lily, please look at me." Couldn't. If I looked at him, I'd start crying, and I'd already humiliated myself enough. "I didn't tell you who I was because I wanted you to see me. Just me. Not my family name or the money or any of it. For 5 days, you treated me like a friend. Do you know how rare that is?" "You're a thorn," I whispered. "And I'm just what?" "Just the woman who saved my life when no one else would," he whispered now. "Just the person who gave up a part of herself for a complete stranger." I shook my head. He didn't understand. He couldn't understand what it was like to be me. Worthless, forgettable, the kind of person that men like Mark used and discarded. One of the suited men knocked on the door. "Sir, we really need to move you to a secure location." "I'm not going anywhere," Daniel said firmly. The man's eyes widened. "But sir, your father—" "Can wait." After the man left, Daniel turned back to me. "Lily, I know you're scared. I know this is overwhelming, but please don't think that who I am changes what you did for me or what it meant." I finally looked at him, and the tears I've been holding back spilled over. "It doesn't matter what it meant," I brokenly said. "Your people are here now. You'll go back to your life, and I'll go back to mine. And in a week, you'll forget I even existed." "I could never forget you," he said, and something in his voice made my heart shiver, but I'd heard pretty words from a man before. I was too tired and too broken to believe in them anymore. 1 week later, the doctors cleared me for discharge on a Thursday morning. I'd spent the past week in a strange limbo, recovering from surgery while watching Daniel's world slowly swallow him whole. More family members visited, lawyers came with documents,
His father arrived once, a tall man whose presence made everyone in the building instinctively lower their eyes. Daniel had introduced me. His father had looked at me with the kind of polite detachment reserved for furniture, nodded once, and never acknowledged me again. That told me everything I needed to know. The nurses helped me dress in the clothes I'd arrived in, the same ones I'd been wearing when I ran from Mark. They felt looser now, I'd lost weight, but at least the bruises had faded to yellow-green shadows instead of angry purple. I was packing the few items I had when Daniel appeared in the doorway. He'd been moved to a private suite on another floor days ago, surrounded by security, but somehow he'd slipped away. "You're leaving," he said. "The doctor said I'm healed enough," I replied, not meeting his eyes. "I need to go home." Home. The way he said it made the word sound wrong to him. I didn't answer. What was I supposed to say? That yes, I was going back to Mark because I had nowhere else to go? That the small amount of money I'd saved was gone because I couldn't work while recovering? That even thinking about facing Mark made my hands shake? But staying here was only sinking into a delusion of safety, and I have to face my reality. "Lily," Daniel stepped into the room. "Stay. Let me help you. You can what?" I finally looked at him. "Set me up somewhere, pay my rent, turn me into some kind of charity case?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" My voice cracked. "You have your life back now. I didn't donate my kidney to get anything from you, so please go back to your world." "You think I care about that?" "I think you should." I zipped up my bag with shaking hands. "I'm grateful for this week, for feeling safe, even if it was temporary. But we both know this was never going to be more than that." Daniel moved closer and I caught his scent. Sandalwood and something clean, something that made me want to lean into him. I forced myself to step back. "What if I don't want it to be temporary?" he said quietly. My heart did something painful in my chest. "Daniel, please don't." "I've had a week to think about." He interrupted. "A week of being surrounded by my family's expectations and obligations and all the things I ran from. And do you know what I kept thinking about?" I shook my head. "You. The way you smiled when I told you about poetry. The way you fell asleep reading that book. And I watched you for an hour because you looked peaceful for the first time since I met you." "Stop," I whispered. "Why? Because it scares you? Because you don't think you deserve it?" His voice was gentle but insistent. "Lily, I know you're afraid. I know someone hurt you badly enough that you think this can't be real, but I'm asking you to trust me just for a little while longer." I wanted to. God, I wanted to so badly it physically hurt. But then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't need to check it to know who it was. Mark's calls and texts had never stopped. "I can't," I said, my voice barely audible. "I'm sorry, I can't." I picked up my bag and walked past Daniel. I made it all the way to the hospital entrance before I had to stop. One hand pressed against the wall, trying to breathe through the panic. Behind me, I heard footsteps. "At least let me give you my number," Daniel said. He was holding out a card with his personal contact information. "Please, if you need anything, if you're in danger, call me." I took the card with trembling fingers. Then I walked out into the cold morning air and I didn't look back. The moment I walked through the door, it's to find Mark in the living room waiting for me. Wow, you've made it this far. If you're enjoying this story and still haven't subscribed, please take a second to do so. It means a lot. Also, drop a comment and let us know where you're listening from. All right, let's get back to the story. "Where the hell have you been? 2 weeks, Lily. 14 days without a word." I flinched, my body automatically tensing. "I was at the hospital. I was sick." "You're lying." He stepped closer, his presence filling the small space like a storm. "I called every hospital in the city. No one had heard of you." "It was a private clinic," I said quietly, backing away. "They don't share patient information." "Shut up." His voice was sharp, cutting through my explanation. "You smell different. You smell like another man." My blood froze. Daniel's scent was still faintly on me, from the hospital room, from his proximity, from the way he'd stood protectively near me. "I don't know what you mean," I whispered. He grabbed my wrist, his grip tight enough to bruise. "Who was it? Who touched you?" "No one, I swear." When he raised his hand, I flinched so hard I stumbled backward, crashing into the kitchen table. Pain shot through my healing incision, and I gasped. "You're mine," he growled. "You belong to me, and if I find out you've been with another—" "I haven't," I sobbed. "Please, Mark, I was in the hospital. I had surgery." He froze. "Surgery?" The word slipped out before I could stop it. His anger shifted, colder now. He dragged me toward the couch and forced me to sit. His hand trembled as he pulled at my shirt hem until the scar showed. His face twisted. "What surgery did you have? Don't make me ask twice," he roared.
It was just a kidney donation, I tried to explain, my voice shaking. Someone needed help and I was a match. And you never thought to tell me? He grabbed my jaw, forcing me to look at him. I'm your partner, Lily. We're together. And you made a choice like that behind my back? You're not my partner, I whispered. The words escaped before I could stop them. You never were. His hand came up so fast, I barely had time to react. I turned away and the impact cut the side of my head instead of my face. Stars exploded across my vision. Don't you ever say that again, he hissed. You belong to me. You're mine. I tried to move away, to put distance between us, but he was faster, stronger. He never let me get far. What happened next was a blur of fear and pain and a desperate sense of powerlessness. His instincts had taken over completely. The need to dominate, to claim, to prove ownership. I tried to resist, but my body was still weak from surgery, and he was a man in full territorial override. When it was finally over, I lay on the couch in the darkness, trembling and aching and feeling completely hollow inside. My eyes flickered to my discarded clothes, where Daniel's business card was tucked there, and all I could do was wonder if he'd really meant what he said. If you're in danger, call me. But calling him would only drag him into my mess. And people like Daniel Thorne didn't save people like me. That was a fantasy I needed to let go of. But 2 weeks passed like that, with every day its own kind of torture that kept me drifting back to the safety I felt right there with Daniel in the hospital. Sometimes wondering if he had forgotten me, if he'd meant any of what he said, or if I'd just been a brief moment of gratitude before his real world reclaimed him. Probably the latter. I was making tea one evening when there was a knock on the door. Not the harsh, impatient pounding of Mark when he came home late. Not the aggressive bang of debt collectors or angry landlords. Just a single, firm knock. I opened the door just a crack, keeping the chain lock in place, only to find a tall man standing in the hallway. I remembered him as one of the suited men from the hospital. My heart jumped into my throat. Yes, I said carefully. Miss Reed, I'm here on behalf of— I don't want any trouble, I said quickly, starting to close the door. Whatever this is about, I can't. Please. His tone softened slightly. Mr. Thorne sent me. He's been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. Your phone— I know my phone isn't working properly, I lied. Tell him I'm fine. Tell him to forget about me. Ma'am, he won't leave it alone. And frankly, neither will I. The man's expression was serious. There are some concerns about your safety. We've been monitoring your partner's activities. And my blood went cold. Mark was digging. I am fine. I don't need your help, I whispered. The man held out a phone. Just take this. It's secure. Mr. Thorne asks only that you keep it with you. If you're ever in danger— I'm not in danger, I said automatically, even as fresh bruises ached under my sleeves. Miss Reed. The man's eyes were kind, and that somehow made it worse. I've worked for the Thorne family for 15 years. I know what abuse looks like. I know what fear looks like. And I'm looking at both right now. I wanted to cry. Instead, I took the phone with trembling hands. Before I could say anything else, I heard the elevator ding down the hallway. Footsteps. Heavy, angry footsteps. Mark. The man at the door heard it too. He's leaving, he said quickly.
but keep the phone, please." He was gone before Mark rounded the corner. But just my luck, Mark saw him. Who the hell was that? Mark's voice was already dangerous as he approached. "Just someone selling something," I lied, hiding the phone behind my back. "I didn't let them in." His eyes narrowed. He grabbed my wrist, yanking my arm forward. The phone clattered to the floor. "That's not your phone," he hissed, recognition flashing across his face. "Who gave it to you?" "I don't know what you're talking about. Is that the man you slept with at the hospital? Is that why you smell like another man?" No, I swear." He dragged me inside, and I knew what was coming. The way he tried to erase every trace of Daniel from my body, my scent, my existence. I just couldn't take it anymore. As he threw me on the bed, I reached for the phone with my fingertips, managing to grip it. I pressed the emergency button with shaky hands as Mark's weight crushed down on me, with his hands lurching to take the phone from me, and threw it at the wall. Just as I braced up for what I knew was coming, I was jolted by the sound of the door being kicked open. It happened so fast I barely processed it. One moment Mark was on top of me, and the next he was being ripped away by men in dark suits. There were at least 5 of them, moving with military precision. Mark fought back, all rage and desperation, but he was no match for them. They restrained him with brutal efficiency, pinning his arms behind his back. And then Daniel appeared in the doorway. He was different than I remembered. Sharper, harder. The gentleman from the hospital was gone, replaced by someone cold and dangerous, someone whose presence filled the entire room like a physical force. His eyes found me first, taking in my torn clothes, my bleeding lip, my terror, and something lethal flickered across his face. "Don't," he said to Mark, and his voice was nothing like before. "Don't you ever touch her again." "This is none of your business," he spat. "This is my woman, my property. You have no right." "She saved my life," Daniel said quietly. "That gives me every right." He turned to one of the men. "Call the police. Tell them we have evidence of assault, battery, and coercion. They'll find plenty of documentation here." "You can't do this," Mark screamed as they dragged him toward the door. "You can't just take her. I'll sue, I'll expose you, I'll tell everyone." "Tell them what?" Daniel's voice was ice. "That you've been abusing a woman for 3 years? That you isolated her, stole from her, and assaulted her repeatedly? Please, do tell them all of that." Within minutes, Mark was gone. The police arrived, took statements, and collected evidence. They asked me questions I could barely answer, my voice shaking with shock and relief and fear that somehow this wasn't real. When they finally left, only Daniel remained. He was standing in the corner of the apartment, his jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might crack. His hands were in fists at his sides, and I could feel the barely contained rage rolling off him in waves. "Daniel," I whispered. He looked at me, and for a moment his expression cracked. The anger melted away, replaced by something that looked like anguish. "Come here," he said softly. I crossed the room on shaking legs, and the moment I was close enough, he pulled me into his arms. Carefully, gently, like I was made of glass. "I'm sorry," he said into my hair. "I should have come sooner." "I should have—" "You came," I said, my voice muffled against his chest. "You came when I called." "Always," he promised. "I will always come when you call." He held me like that for a long time, until my shaking stopped and my breathing steadied. Then he pulled back just enough to look at my face. "I'm going to get you help," he said. "Medical, legal, psychological, everything you need. And you're never coming back to this place, and he will be gone for a long time. I will make sure of it." "Where will I go?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer, even though my heart was already responding to his presence, his protection, his promise. "Wherever I am," he said simply, "if you'll have me." Before I could answer, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. My breath caught. "Not yet," he said quickly, seeing my panic. "I'm not asking yet, but I want you to know my intentions are serious, Lily. I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere, that what I feel for you—" "It's too fast," I said, shaking my head, even as my heart screamed otherwise. "It is," he agreed. "But I spent a week thinking I'd lost you, I spent 2 weeks trying to find you, and I will spend the rest of my life proving to you that you're worth saving, that you're worth loving." He took my hand and led me away from that apartment, away from the life that had nearly destroyed me. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I could have a different ending.
When we got to Daniel's penthouse, it was nothing like the apartment I left behind. It was simply beautiful. "This is yours now too," Daniel said softly, standing beside me at the window. "If you want it." I couldn't speak. Everything still felt surreal. The rescue, the police, Mark being taken away. My mind was struggling to catch up with reality. Daniel seemed to understand. He didn't push. Instead, he led me to a bedroom and left me alone with clean clothes and a promise that I didn't have to do anything except rest. I slept for 14 hours straight. When I woke, Daniel was sitting in a chair across the room reading. He looked up when I stirred, and his expression softened. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Confused," I admitted. "Safe. Scared that I'll wake up and it won't be real." He set down his book and came to sit on the edge of the bed. Not touching me, just present. "It's real," he said. "You're safe now, Lily. That's real." Over the next few weeks, he showed me his world slowly. The penthouse had a library, rows and rows of books, including poetry collections that made me smile. A kitchen where a private chef prepared meals I didn't have to be afraid of eating. A balcony where we sat in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe. But mostly, there was Daniel. He was patient in a way I didn't know people could be. When I flinched at sudden movements, he slowed down. When I had nightmares, which happened frequently, he'd wake me gently and sit with me until dawn broke. When I couldn't eat because anxiety twisted my stomach, he didn't force me, just sat beside me and talked about nothing important until my body relaxed enough to try. "I want to introduce you to my family," he said one morning as we had coffee on the balcony. "Only when you're ready. No pressure." My chest tightened. "They'll hate me." "They'll love you," he corrected, "because I love you." The words hung in the air between us. It was the first time he'd said it directly, without hesitation. I set down my coffee cup with shaking hands. "You don't have to say that." "I know I don't have to." He turned to face me fully. "I'm saying it because it's true, Lily. You didn't even know me, and you were willing to die for me. How could I not love that? How could I not love you?" I wanted to believe him. Some part of me desperately wanted to. But 3 years of Mark's cruelty had taught me not to trust kind words. "Give it time," I whispered. "I will," Daniel said. "I have all the time in the world for you." 2 weeks later, I agreed to meet his family. The Thorne estate was stunning. Traditional architecture mixed with modern elegance. Gardens that looked like paintings. I wore clothes Daniel had bought me. Expensive things that made me feel like an imposter. His mother was the first to greet us. She was elegant, with Daniel's sharp eyes, but her expression was warm. "Lily," she said, taking my hand gently. "Daniel has told us everything. Welcome to our family." I expected judgment. I expected coldness. What I got was acceptance. His father nodded respectfully. His younger sister hugged me like we'd known each other for years. An uncle asked about my interests. An aunt offered to help me with anything I needed. There was a moment during dinner when Daniel's hand found mine under the table. He squeezed gently, a silent reassurance. I squeezed back. Later that night, back at the penthouse, I found the courage to tell him. "Your family was kind. They see what I see," he said. "A brave person who deserves love." My healing was slow. Some days were harder than others. I'd have moments where anxiety would spike, where I'd panic about being a burden. Daniel would find me on the bathroom floor crying, and he'd sit down beside me without judgment, just existing in my pain until I was ready to move again. But there were good days too. Days where I could laugh without flinching. Days where I could eat without fear. Days where I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I deserved to be happy. One evening, about a month after I'd moved in, we were reading together on the couch. My head was on his shoulder, his arm around me, when he gently tilted my chin up. "Can I kiss you?" he asked softly. "Only if you want to." I did want to. I'd wanted to for weeks, but hadn't known how to ask. When our lips met, it was gentle and warm and tasted like promise. His hand came up to cradle my face, and I could feel the restraint in him, the man holding back to let me set the pace. I deepened the kiss slightly, a silent permission, and he took over from there. When we broke apart, he pressed his forehead against mine. "I love you," he whispered. This time, I believed him. "I'm starting to love you too. I'm terrified, but I'm starting to." He smiled against my skin. "That's enough for now." 6 months later, I woke to sunlight streaming across our bed. Our bed, a detail that still felt unbelievable to me. I was leaning into Daniel, his large arms engulfing me, warm and secure. He stirred as I turned to look at him, his dark eyes opening slowly, even half asleep. His expression softened when he saw me. "Good morning," he murmured, pulling me closer. "Morning," I whispered back. This was our ritual now. Quiet moments before the world demanded anything from us. Moments where I was just Lily, and he was just Daniel, and nothing else mattered. I'd started volunteering at a community center, helping women in situations like I'd been in. It was healing work, watching people find their strength, seeing them believe they deserved better. Daniel came with me sometimes, and I'd catch his father watching us together with an expression that looked like approval. "I have something to show you," Daniel said, pulling me from my thoughts one evening. He led me to the balcony with a mysterious smile. On the small table was a folder. Inside were photographs of a house with a garden and space and windows that faced the ocean. He said quietly, "I want to build a life with you, a real one. Not just in this apartment, but with you. A home that's ours." My throat tightened. "You're asking me to..." He interrupted gently. "No pressure, just eventually, when you're ready." I looked at the photographs, at the garden where I could plant flowers, at the quiet spaces where I could heal. And I realized I was ready. I've been ready for weeks. "Yes," I said, and his smile could have powered the city. The next morning, I noticed something was wrong. Not wrong, different. My body felt different, heavier. My sense of smell was sharper, almost overwhelming. I felt queasy looking at my morning coffee. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror, realization dawning slowly. When I came out, Daniel took one look at my face and stood up. "What is it? Are you okay?" I paused, still processing. "I think I might be pregnant."
The words hung in the air. Daniel's expressions cycled through shock, joy, wonder, all within seconds. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Not completely, but everything feels different." He pulled me into his arms, lifting me off the ground and spinning me around. I squealed, half laughing, half crying. "We're having a baby?" he said, wonder in his voice. "Maybe, probably." "Yes," I nodded against his chest. Are you happy?" He pulled back to look at me, and his eyes were wet. "I've never been happier in my entire life." The doctor confirmed it 2 days later. 6 weeks along, healthy, perfect. Daniel held my hand the entire appointment, his usual composed expression breaking into a smile when we heard the heartbeat for the first time. That night, we told his family. His mother cried happy tears. His father shook my hand and told me I was welcome in the family forever. And I never felt happier, fulfilled, and grateful to whatever gods out there that took a look at a hopeless woman like me to reward with so much blessing, and so much that waking up every morning feels like a fantasy, one I slowly start to accept as my reality. 1 year later, I stood at the window of our new house, watching Daniel play with our daughter in the garden. She was laughing, he was pretending to be a monster, chasing her around the grass, letting her patch him every few steps. Daniel came inside carrying our daughter, who was babbling about daddy and monster and other words that were only half-formed. He set her down to play with her toys and wrapped his arms around me from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. "That I gave you my kidney to save your life," I said softly, "and somehow you saved mine." "We saved each other," he corrected. "That's what love is, Lily. Not one person rescuing another. It's two broken people choosing to heal together." I turned in his arms and looked up at him. This man who'd been a stranger, then a patient, then my rescuer, and was now my everything. "I love you," I said. "I love you too. Both of you, forever." Our daughter toddled over and wrapped her arms around our legs, babbling happily. And standing there in the sunlight of our home, surrounded by everything I'd thought I'd never deserve, I understood something fundamental. I'd once been ready to give up, ready to disappear, ready to believe my life meant nothing. But I'd been wrong. My life had always meant something. I just needed someone to see it, someone to believe in me when I couldn't believe in myself, someone to love me through the darkness until I could find my own light. Daniel had been that person, and now, as I held his hand and watched our daughter play, I realized I could be that person for someone else too, that my pain had purpose, that my survival mattered, that I mattered. The scars would always be there, on my body, in my heart, but they were no longer marks of shame. They were proof of strength. They were proof that even when you're broken, even when you've given up, even when you think you have nothing left to give, love can find you. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it saves you.